Okay, so the three ways that we can tell if triangles are similar are side, 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 and angle, angle. What it means when I say side, side, side is that if I look at the corresponding sides of the triangles, the ratios of those corresponding sides are all the same. Now, for side, angle, side, that means that you have two sides and the angle that's in between it, and that the two sides, the corresponding sides ratios are the same, and the angles are congruent, or the angles are the same. And angle, angle means that two angles in one triangle are congruent to two angles in another triangle. So let's look at this example here. The first thing I always want to do is I always want to go ahead and mark any given information. So if we start with the first one, it says angle C is congruent to angle F. So I'm just going to mark that in my diagram. So angle C is congruent to angle F. It also says that angle A is congruent to angle D. Excuse me. And then it also says that EF is equal to 6 and BC is equal to 2. Now, the EF and BC, those sides are called corresponding because they're in the same position in each triangle. Now, if I look at my diagram and what I'm given, I'm just going to use angle, angle for my information. So what I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to want to go ahead and I'm going to want to go, hang on a second here. Why isn't this working? There we go. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to check each one of these first and then see if it's right. So the first one I'm going to do is say, well, I know that angle A is congruent to angle D. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to find where angle A is congruent to angle D. Now, when we're comparing angles that were just given to us, we use the word given. Now, at each point, I'm going to go ahead and submit the question to make sure I got it right. So I did get it right here, so I can keep going. In the second one, I know that angle C is equal to angle F. So I'm going to go here and say that angle C is equal to angle F. And again, that's given. And then I'm going to submit that. Now, for the last one, there's actually two possible correct answers. I can either say what's given up here, that EF over BC, I have to find that, EF over BC, let me see if I can find that. Here, EF over BC is equal to 3, which is true, and that would be ratio. Now, I can go ahead and if I submit that, it'll say that it's right, because that is correct. That is part of the given information. However, since I didn't necessarily need it, I could say that that bubble just wasn't needed, in which case the reason would be none. And that should also be correct because in this case we're just using angle, angle. Now, for this, I'm going to do my triangles congruent. It says triangle ABC. The order that we have, the second letter is important. They have to be corresponding. So when I look at my diagram, angle A corresponds to angle D. So if angle A comes first, then D has to come first. Angle B corresponds to E, so if B comes second, E has to come second. Angle C corresponds to F, so then that's when that has to come in. So if I go back to here, I see that ABC is congruent to DEF right there. And then how do I know that? I know that by angle, angle. So then if we put that all in there, submit the question, we get it all right. So that's an example of angle, angle. So let's take a look at another one. Let's look at this one here. Now, when I look at this one, I'm going to write in all my given information. It says that DF is equal to 12. It says that AC is equal to 4. Angle A is congruent to angle D, and that BC is equal to 2, and that EF is equal to 6. So when I write this down, I'm going to say something like DF over AC is equal to 12 over 4, which equals 3. Or in other words, DF over AC equals 3. Now, I also have EF over BC is 6 over 2, which also equals 3. So that's another thing I can put in there. And then I also know that angle A is congruent to angle D. So now let's enter that information into the drop-down menus. So let's start with DF over AC is equal to 3. Now, the reason I'm going to use there is ratio, because I'm doing one side over another. That's a ratio. And let me just check my answer to make sure that that's correct. And it is. So then let's go ahead and go to the next one. So that's EF over BC is equal to 3. And that is also a ratio. So we have that there. And then the last one, we have angle A is congruent to angle D. And then we have that is given. And let's check that out. And let's submit that. Okay. Now, here's where we have to be super careful. When I looked at this, I said that this side down here was 12. This side down here was 4. The side over here was 6. The side over here was 2. And then you have this angle is congruent to this angle. So now, you might think that we would use something like side, angle, side, because I have two sides and one angle. However, when you use side, angle, side, the angle that you know is congruent would have to be the angle that's in between the two sides that have the same ratio. In this case, it would have to be this one and this one. So really, we don't have side, angle, side. We actually have side, side, angle. Side, side, angle is not a way that we can show that triangles are congruent. So my answer here for the next one is actually going to be that these are not congruent. And they're not congruent because of side, side, angle. So, whoops. Something's not right there. I'll have to go back and check that one. But that should be not similar and not similar by side, side, angle. Okay, I'll have to go back to that one and check that one to see why that's not right. Okay, and I just want to go through one more of these with you, and I want to go through this one with you. Now, this one is actually going to be one where we're going to do a side, angle, side. So what happens here is that when I look at this side here and this side here, we have to determine which sides are corresponding. Now, I know that these two sides are corresponding because they're both the longest side in that triangle. So whenever you have two triangles, if you're given lengths of sides, the longest side always corresponds to the longest side. In the next one, this side corresponds to this one because those are the two shorter sides that are given. I also know that this angle here corresponds to this angle here because those are vertical angles. So let me go ahead and write a couple of things out here. So I'm going to start off with something like MK over HK is equal to 12 over 8, which is equal to, when I reduce that, that'll just be 3 halves. Also, when I do LK over KJ, now notice the order that you write the letters when you're writing a line segment do not matter. You could write KJ or JK, it doesn't matter. Is 7.5 over 5, which also reduces to 3 halves. Now, when I write this angle, I'm going to say angle MKL is congruent to angle, or is equal to angle, HKJ. Now, in this case, the order that you write them does matter. The vertex, which is K, has to be the middle letter. The other two letters don't matter. In other words, it could be LKM or MKL. That means the exact same thing. Is there a question? Okay. So, now let's go ahead and see if we can put this in here. So the first one that we're going to do is I'm going to look for mk over hk. So, whoops, I hit the wrong one. So when I look at this, I also have km instead of mk. That's fine. Hk is fine. So that's going to be my first one, and that's going to be because that is the ratio. And I'm going to go ahead and submit that to see if that's correct, which it is. Now, the next one is going to be that I have LK over KJ. So we have LK over KJ, or KL over KJ, and that's equal to 1.5 as well, and that's also a ratio. And let's see here, and that's correct. Now the last one, we have angle MKL. Let's see, our HKJ and MKL, and those are vertical angles for my reason there. So now, when we say the triangles are congruent, it's going to be triangle, and let's see which one we start with here, HKJ. So if I go back here, if I say triangle, HKJ. Now, H corresponds to M, so that means that triangle M has to go first, because H corresponds with M. K corresponds with K, so K will go second, and L corresponds with J, so that will go last. So that will be MKL. So we have H. So we have HKJ and MKL. Should be that, and this should be side, angle, side. Okay, so that's what that one looks like. Now, again, this one here is wrong. If you've already done this, you might have to go back and change it, because it should definitely be not similar. And I'm going to have to look at the code for that question to see why it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to.